I think that our society today is so focused in the direction of medication where it's like, oh, I'm unhappy with my life. Here's a SSRI. Oh, I'm fat. Here's a pill.
Ozempic.
Oh, I can't, my kid is too crazy. Oh, here's a pill for that. No, you have to do the hard work in learning how to deal with these things over the long term. And I think that that's the answer to your question, Gavin, of, oh, don't you want to reach your zenith? Yes, I'm interested in improving myself every day of my life. We all are as ambitious young men. I'm sure most of our audiences as well. But I'm interested in doing that through the ways that are going to make that a natural and sustainable thing instead of just popping a pill that's a short-term solution to a long-term problem.
Right. This is why we listen to Marcus Aurelius meditations. This is why we listen to Seneca, the Stoics. The old questions have old answers, right? So, at least on the philosophical part of it.
I definitely like agree on that point of just like doing difficult things is what brings happiness.
Mm.
And I think that you have to have that foundation no matter what. Like that won't be involved in the hypothetical situation. Like you'll still need to be that person in order to get those results. So it's a
But
nuanced
okay,
question,
so
but
Gavin, a little bit of a different, but you're somebody who's interested in getting physically stronger. Would you take steroids? Would you take steroids if there was no negative downsides?
yeah, yeah.
Welcome to Your One Podcast, where future leaders take on the complexities of today.
To Your One Podcast. Happy Easter, everyone. I hope you liked that little intro. We're about improvement here on the podcast, so let us know what you think. But once again, I am welcomed by Zachary Crilly, Michael McNeil, and Felipe Segura. And this is podcast number 23, our Jordan podcast, so let's make it a good one.
And we got the intro for you on the Jordan podcast, ladies and gentlemen.
Of course. And we had a lot of exciting news this week in the political and business realms, but what we want to dive into is Sam Bankman-Fried's 25-year sentence, some crazy numbers around that, RFK announcing a new VP, and then Trump creating a SPAC and his stock absolutely ripping, even though it brought in a whopping negative $49 million last year. But you'll want to stick around for the end, where we talk about Neuralink's first implant and what we think there. But to
Look at
start
this
off,
hosting job, ladies and gentlemen. Look at this. He lets you know what we're going to get into it right at the get. I love it.
there it is, improvement. But let's start off with Sam Bankman-Fried. So he was basically sentenced to 25 years. A couple numbers around it is that he lost $8 billion for consumers, 1.7 billion for investors, and his hedge fund that he founded, I think with his girlfriend, lost 1.3 billion. What are our thoughts there, just off the top?
25 years sounds, for me, it sounds just about right, honestly. I'm curious to hear if you guys and the listeners out there think the same thing. His lawyers, I read Michael Lewis's book, Going Infinite, which is all about Sam Bankman-Fried, and the FTX meteoric rise to being on the public stage to collapsing phenomenally. Frankly, I don't recommend the book. I thought that Michael Lewis, I don't know what he was thinking. I love his other books, but this one, he was very, I think, weak in his approach to describing Sam Bankman-Fried. He made him out to be a boy genius who, for some reason, in all of his genius, didn't really understand what he was getting into and defrauding millions of investors of billions of dollars. But, I say that the 25 years is fair as somebody who didn't lose money. And frankly, I don't know anybody that did lose money on FTX, which is kind of crazy because I know, as probably a lot of us share, many young people are into crypto. I can only imagine the frustration in putting money into an exchange, even having it sit in cash and then it disappearing. I wonder what this means for regulation if crypto exchanges will start to be seen as banks that will be protected under the FDIC, so that people, when they put their money in, will have some guarantees that their funds will be safe.
What's funny is that all the investors and all the shareholders in the liquidation process are gonna get paid back in full. But to your latter point about like what it sort of does for blockchains and sort of cryptocurrencies and other exchanges such as like Solana or Coinbase, is it sort of put them on this pedestal where it's like we don't see this as a I guess, feasible service. And I think that's bad. In terms of that, I think the 25 years was a little bit light. I think he should have got like 50 years, but it's a very interesting case study for sure.
They wanted 40 to 50, but they lessened it. So
I didn't know
they
that
basically cut it in half.
I didn't know that his creditors are going to be paid back. That's huge.
The funny
Oh, muted.
The funniest part is that he made a profit from a lot of his investments. They were actually really good investments. It's just the fact that he was through Alameda and through some other like Ponzi schemes, just taking people's money and investing it. But some of his investments were great. Just he's stealing people's money.
I mean, he is a textbook case of a quick rise to power in our kind of weird postmodern modern monetary theory age, right? Like he was able to create billions of dollars, and I really wish that somebody will write a good book about him because it's an incredibly interesting story in the financial intricacies of how he created this hedge fund and then shifted it, and it was his girlfriend running the hedge fund, and they were into some like weird sexual things, and there's a lot of intrigue to the story, not to mention that he was the second largest Democratic political donor in the last election cycle. What are the implications of that? I mean, that affects all of us.
Yeah, he had this God complex for sure.
I think this is just someone who understood how to like manipulate kind of like people on momentum. He understood that there was this kind of an idea of a Gen Z person coming up, has 10 different screens, one's playing video games, he's on stream all the time. And then I think we're all surprised in the end when like a offshore crypto exchange goes bankrupt because they're defrauding people in the Bahamas. I mean, I don't know. I think that at the end of the day, he was just a fraud and it got way too big and he didn't time the market right. But I don't think you can really ever time the market when you're defrauding people. So yeah, 25 years seems like a lot of time. We'll see where maybe it was too little, maybe it was too much, but it's probably going to learn a thing or two there. So, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's a testament to, I don't know if this is human nature or just what tends to happen to these people, but we just put these people on pedestals, call them geniuses, and then they have this way of talking like Sam Bankman-Fried was talking about, earn to give, like I want to give back, all of these kind of BS things, and wrapped it up in ethical business practice, and then everybody just dumped money on him because he's like a 29-year-old MIT grad, and we all just praised him. So it's an interesting thing because like if you took him at face value, we didn't know him for like 6 months before, we had no clue who he was, but then he just rose out of nowhere. What's your thoughts on that? Like, does society tend to just put people on pedestals and then without any judgment?
Well, I think there's a certain level of it that's natural to human nature, and that is the theory that somebody else has done the due diligence, so I don't have to, right? And you see this across business, politics, social life, is, hey, Gavin calls me and he says, I'm investing in this smart young entrepreneur, Sam Bankman-Fried. He seems like a great guy. It's a good idea. All my buddies are behind it. And, oh, hey, Tom Brady's behind it. And social trust. And I said, oh, somebody down the line must have done some research, right? Who am I, little old me? What do I know about this confusing thing, blockchain? All my buddies are putting in money. I might as well do it too. And you see this time and again. We've talked about Theranos. We've talked about this guy, Sam Bankman-Fried. I think it just goes to show the the human nature element of social validation and social proof, and really how strong that is.
Really.
Have you listened to Chamath talk about what it was like investing or negotiating with Sam Bankman-Fried? He was interested in investing in FTX, and I think, if I remember right, he asked for like more details before he was going to put a bunch of money in, and they responded with like "fuck you" or something like that. And he was like, "I'm not going to invest in this." But a lot of VCs were like, "Oh, it's because he's hot. He's onto something. He's a genius. We just all got to follow suit." Like everyone wants there to be another Steve Jobs, you know. And there are people willing to kind of take that mantle, act like they're Steve Jobs, and run away with money, you know.
I think in the Elon book, he talked about a conversation he had with Sam Bankman-Fried, and they had like one phone call, and he came away with it just being like that kid's a weirdo. Like I would never work with that kid. He seems so disorganized and disoriented, and that's just so interesting because that was at the height of his craze where they had that conversation, and he just read it completely differently than everybody else. But from one I guess losing business leader to hopefully one that's getting some popularity is RFK, who just selected his VP, Nicole Shanahan. For the listeners, she's a 38-year-old Californian lawyer. She's in philanthropy. She has a foundation, an organization. She founded it. It like directs money toward issues including women's reproductive science, criminal justice reform, and environmental causes. And it seems like she's just the spearhead of like women's rights. But Michael, what do you think about this decision? I know you're close to the topic.
Yesterday, I was actually in the park, and there was this lady that's like volunteering on the Kennedy campaign, and I got her number and everything, and I got this button. Just for viewers who can see this, I'm huge on the Kennedy family. I have this mural in my room of RFK. So yes, I am very emotional about this, and I'm gonna volunteer for this campaign. I think I think what you mentioned, right? She's very big into environment, criminal justice, women productive rights, which are a lot of these great things that apply a lot to, sort of the left and at times maybe even the extreme left. I guess you can call it the far left. And I think it's, even with talking with people, I don't think it was a great pick personally. I mean, RFK has been very, focused on, the Ukraine dispute, some of our forever wars, the border, and then some of our like just more domestic issues. And I feel like that's not really garnered to what she's trying to do. So, I don't think it was a great pick, but we'll see sort of where it goes. And I'm riding the train until it falls off, wheels fall off of it. So that's my quick bit.
What's the support like for RFK right now? Like I don't exactly know how many waves he's causing, but what's that look like?
So he's polling, and the DNC is like literally adamant about trying to defect his cause, essentially, because maybe most people don't know this, but RFK was trying to run as a Democrat and was not allowed in by the DNC, so he chose to become an independent and run. And I mean, he's polling, I think, at like 10% right now. I mean, it's a pretty much a Hail Mary for him to like actually win the presidency. But the left feels like, especially after taking on Nicole Shanahan as his VP, as this is taking away from their votes, and this is helping, de facto helping Donald Trump. So there's an argument for that, but his polling's around like 10% on national. Hopefully that increases, but we'll see.
And to that,
It's saying.
oh, there we go. There we see his overall numbers. Gavin, I think one really important part about Nicole Shanahan's background that you left out is that she used to be married to Sergey Brin. So she has been a large financial contributor to the RFK Jr. campaign, supposedly shelling out $4 million for his Super Bowl ad that really seemed to put him on a lot of people's radars. I am signed up for the Kennedy emails that go out, and I got one after that had a link to a video that showed her background. Let's put it in the show notes because it really did a great job highlighting her background. And from a very humble means, she claims that her family wouldn't have been able to survive if not for public assistance, and really worked her way up in the tech world, and is now in one that's hard to not get behind. 53% of Americans now classify themselves as independent, irregardless of who RFK Jr. picks. I frankly don't see a pathway to him really winning in this election. But look at the two alternatives that we have, right? And look at the apathy that many young people, many people in general, but especially young people, have towards these two different candidates in general. I think that RFK is now walking so that future independent candidates can run. And I think that this is really a bellwether changing point for the duopoly that is the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. And I'm very grateful to RFK Jr. for putting his neck on the line and frankly putting his family's last name on the line to blaze this path.
I'm unconvinced. I think that the RFK, if he was trying to build a future independent party, he would have chosen someone who might have been from the right and disaffected. Like, I would think of maybe like a Chris Christie, but I think he kind of classifies in the neocon category or something. I don't know. It seems more to me that RFK is more of like performing a Ross Perot, George Bush Sr. situation where he detracts a bunch of voters from the incumbent president, from Joe Biden, because his VP pick, I think, speaks way more to people who are Democrats who are disaffected with Joe Biden or the current state of the Democratic Party than Republicans. So I don't know. I think that's what it seems to me. I think if he wanted to make the party, like, make this a future thing, I think he would have gone for someone on the right, because RFK Jr. already kind of appeals to more center left people, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, he does, because you read, but I think if you just looked at it I think he's been denounced and almost ostracized from the left. So this play was sort of like trying to appeal heavily to the left. In a perfect world, it would have been like, okay, this is a Democratic individual who has more left-leaning views. But I think this is a different environment where it's like he's almost been alienated from the left. In terms of the point that you brought up, Zach, I find that, I think because after this, I think that action needs to be now. Because I think after this election cycle, I don't think we're going to vote for late 70, 80-year-old nominees again. So to Felipe's point that he started with, it seems like Rose Perot, I think that was who you mentioned.
Ross Perot.
Ross Perot, whatever his name is, who ran as an independency during, what was that? Was that
92, which helped Clinton win in 92.
Yeah, we are fed up, but I think it's just going to go back to sort of us just picking the better of two evils, which fucking sucks.
I don't think that that's a bad comparison. I think that Ross Perot did do something to show people that an independent can run at the national level and gain some traction. And I think that's what RFK Jr. is doing. There would be a brilliant study, and I'm sure somebody's written a paper about this, about why that independence movement failed after Perot. Frankly, probably because he threw a lot of his personal cash behind his race, and there wasn't that donor support. Because it's hard to convince donors to support something that is going to be a losing race. But
right.
I mean, I really do think that this can be the start of a viable third party in this country, which is something that I am adamantly behind.
Same here.
Do you think that's a reality? Like, do you think that would be feasible in the next coming elections?
I think it's something that's a conversation now. I mean, this is I have loved the idea of a third party for a couple of years now, and used to be that people would laugh at me because it's like, all right, buddy, yeah, good luck with that. 53% of Americans now identify as independent. Have conversations with people who I know very few people that are amped to vote in this election. Very few people. That has to
Fact.
have implications.
That's a
It
fact.
has to.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. But I do feel like there's a level of just the fact that there's so much money behind both of those parties, and the fact that it would need to be an absolute upheaval in the general opinion of the public for
But
that to even
everything
like
changes
think
with
about
time.
happening.
Everything changes, and I'm not foolhardy enough to say that it's gonna. Oh, it's gonna happen now. No, it's gonna take time, and it's gonna take resources, time, energy, and money. But I think that there's a pathway to it happening, and the more bad candidates that we get from red team and blue team time and time again, the more appetite there is going to be for a viable third party. I
I'd
mean,
be I'd be interested to see over time if this is the highest amount of independence in America in history. Do you think it's one of the highest points?
certainly within recent memory,
Yeah, I guess
cer-
we've only been alive for
certainly
20
within my little
years.
lifetime. Yeah.
Well, we've got six, so that's about 250. But
For
we'll
the
we'll get
5
that
years that
data
I've been
for
able
you.
to vote.
We'll get the data for the listeners. But speaking about the election, the big man, Trump, just created a SPAC. And a couple notes here is that the Trump Media is what it's now called, his public company. It debuted with a stock price of $50, giving it a $6.8 billion valuation. Mind you, Trump Media lost $49 million in the first 9 months of last year and brought in a whopping $3.4 million in revenue, had to pay $37.7 million in interest expenses, so basically lost it's accrued to $49 million. Trump owns 60% of the company, and SimilarWeb, a research company, estimates that Truth Social has about 5 million users compared to 2 billion on TikTok and 3 billion on Facebook. So basically, that 5 million of users, that's the company. Like Truth Social is what the company, I guess, stands for. But what do you guys think about this? Like, does this kind of skew your perspective on how financial manipulation can occur? Like, how is this valued at 6.8 billion?
Called this from the beginning. I said this is the year of Donald Trump. He's now doubled his wealth. It's not even the election. He's now going to pay off that bond like it's nothing. No, but realistically, I think he can't. That stock obviously is super inflated, but it will help him be able to borrow against his shares because I don't think he's able to sell the shares immediately. And yeah, it's good news for him.
And I don't think it's financial manipulation because something is only worth what people are willing to pay. And the price is so high and the valuation is so high because people are willing to pay it. I would be very interested to see of those 5 million Truth Social users, what percentage are also shareholders. Because my guess is that those are diehard Trump people and that they want to put their money where their mouth is and support him financially as well.
I mean, what I see it as is almost like an influencer dropping a product. Like an influencer who has amassed it's the biggest influencer drop ever. Like this public company is now Trump's product that his followers and users can dump money into and put their money where they enjoy listening to and enjoy watching. It's not much different. Like influencers grow this massive audience, then monetize it through a product or service. Trump has built a following of maybe 250 million people, and now he's dropping a public company that you can invest in.
Well said. Well said, I think. I think it's a really big protest to what's been happening to him in some of these lawsuits. And some of them may be legitimate, but there has been an attack. Let's be honest about this. There has been an attack on Trump through our criminal justice system at the head of the Biden administration. Full stop. So I think a lot of individuals and shareholders and retail investors are seeing this and we're like, let's invest into this brand. The point that you were making, Gavin, this person who's great at storytelling, this person who like we fundamentally believe in, and we're gonna run with him to the gates. So I really think that that's a big proponent of it. I don't know if I'd be an investor in it, maybe a short-term investor in it, but to what you started with, Felipe, it's definitely the year of Trump. It's
Why
definitely his
why would
year.
you invest in this stuff? Like,
Well, if and this, I mean, this has really interesting implications for the future of campaign finance, right? Because
That's so
as I
true.
said, these people want to financially support him. There's always been a pathway to financially support him. That's by donating to the campaign. But in some weird psychological way, it feels different when you're investing in a stock because you can win as well. So I wonder if this is going to be more common in the future of politicians seeing, this is an interesting way to get my hands on some cash that I can use either personally or for a political advancement.
Oh, that's a great point, but do you think like any other, well, I can, this is just a fact, maybe Obama, but I don't know anyone who's just like has a profile that's also like not attached to them as a politician.
Huh.
Like Trump's literally like so famous. But I mean, it's a good point. It's definitely,
I mean, Obama certainly. I think that Obama could have
yeah,
raised a lot of money through this. Maybe Nancy Pelosi. I mean,
yeah.
now he's a great stock trader. Who
Oh
knows?
my God. That's another fucking issue we got to get into too, dude. Like the Warren, Elizabeth Warren's worth like $90 million. I
Is she
can't, we
really?
gotta, dude, we gotta, yes. And then Nancy's
That's
like
so
worth like
crazy.
170. It's insane. These people get paid $200,000 a year. I can't wait to talk about that issue. But that's for a later time.
bro,
God damn.
if Vivek Ramaswamy, if you're watching this, keep on posting those short clips to YouTube, dude. You can blow up. But yeah, that is super interesting, like the campaign financing. But let's bring it to our last topic, which is Neuralink. And basically what happened is Neuralink put their first chip into somebody's brain, and that person was a quadriplegic, so he couldn't move arms or legs, and he was able to move the mouse on a computer and like play a game, type messages, things like that. My first question is, we'll go around, but would you ever get an implant for the Neuralink? Depending on, we'll set a circumstance. If that Neuralink provided you with like ChatGPT level knowledge, would you get it?
No.
Like,
No,
no,
no, not a
never.
chance. Not a chance. Not a chance. Not a chance. At least, but this is me speaking now, right? Like at least if I had like one of these chronic diseases or paralysis or whatever Neuralink is literally trying to apply to, then like maybe I have nothing to lose. But me now, no. Because then you would just have like everyone's like a NPC, right? Like if it had that ability, right? Like everyone, there's no alpha anymore. Like, what are you gonna teach someone that they don't already know? Like, I don't know.
Well, no, I mean it depends. If it came out, I wouldn't be the first to jump on it, but then there would be people who would be like, yes, absolutely, I'm going to do it. And if all those people ended up becoming Fortune 500 CEOs and founding the greatest companies on earth, then everyone in society is going to have to get the implant. So
What
I
would that be
would
worth
probably end up
though?
doing it.
What would that
What?
be worth?
I
Think
think it
about it. What would
would.
that be worth? If you
I
could buy
would,
that, what would that be worth? $1 billion?
what? The implant.
Yeah, I mean, if you could take this and become a Fortune 500 CEO, then like,
Well,
what do you
if it
think the
came
price of
out that
that?
not everyone, like the bums that still stay bums, but like certain people, you're like, whoa, like all of the new unicorn founders are wearing this thing. Everyone in society is going to jump on it. So I think that would be the answer. But I think, I mean, what I'm getting from you, Micah, is it to know as it comes out, I would not immediately do it. No.
No, I guess, all right, we got to separate from the circumstances to what it actually is. And for what it actually is, I have no use for it now. It would do nothing for my ability now. But for someone who has a chronic disease or has paralysis or the things that it's trying to apply to, it makes sense to try to use it from a clinical and a health basis. Just me personally, I don't need it. So that's why I'm saying no.
Why?
No. I mean, even if it unlocked all the worlds and the world could become mine, No. I am so grateful for the amazing body and mind and spirit that I've been given, and I would not manipulate with that with a man-made technology.
Quick question, Zach. Given the sort of the day, is there a religious undertone to that answer?
Yes. Frankly, there
Okay.
is a religious and spiritual answer.
Would there be any application? What if it made you more in tune with your spirituality, health, and overall
But that's
humanness?
assuming that a human can create something that's greater than the creation of the creator himself, of the universe itself, of God himself. And I struggle to believe that that's possible. I think that there might be the illusion that that's possible. And I really do see, I think that it's going to become really tough, tricky times here, gentlemen. I think that there's going to be a lot of social pressure to get these superpowers, frankly, that is going to make the world a lot easier place to live in. That's going to make it, yeah, maybe all the people that do get this are the richest ones, and maybe the ones that don't are driven into caves. But I'd rather be 100% human in a cave than a robot in a in a penthouse in New York.
Yeah, let me
Yeah.
let me interject here. Okay, yes, I gotta justify myself here. Okay, I wouldn't do it if it was just pure pressure and you put this thing on and you become a robot, you lose your emotions, and every like bodily need, you just like flip a switch and everything's like solved or whatever. Like dopamine flows into your brain, whatever. Oh, I'm feeling lonely. Love comes into like whatever those chemical
Neurons or whatever.
reactions. Yeah, just like enter. Not do that. I agree with you, Zach. But I think there's also this issue that's fundamental to the question, which is we don't know what it's going to be like. We just assume the full maxim of it as this general AI that's like its own human being that like takes over our own mind and essentially makes us robots. We don't know what the extent of Neuralink actually is, so it's really difficult to say. But yeah, I mean, I think in the end, and it's a big if, I don't know if it's possible, if it does make you smarter and you can like have this weird telepathic communication system with other people through like text messaging just from your brain. I don't know. We don't know if we'll do it, but it is an interesting question. Yeah.
I think we
It
got
might
way
not be
too
worth
ahead of,
it.
I think we got way too ahead of what it actually is today on the first person that they actually tried it on.
Yeah.
We spoke about something
We're
that's like
just
20.
theorizing.
But that's where
Yeah.
your mind goes with
That's
this
where it's
question, though.
going.
You know what I mean?
It does go iRobot, like alien movie type
No,
thought
but
process, but
here's what I'll say.
but it's not going to be that. Not today.
Where I see it is just out of curiosity. Like, aren't you curious to see what your zenith looks like? Your like absolute optimum looks like?
No,
What if
actually, I'm not.
what if it just you could do everything efficiently? You're still all human. You still have human thoughts, but you just are absolutely healthy, absolutely physically fit. Like it just
We're not.
your
We're just
mind.
okay. Let's be honest. We're not talking about Neuralink anymore because everything we're talking about is not what it is today.
Yeah, but
That's where it's gonna be.
but that's the
Ah.
same issue of like taking Adderall, right? A lot of people our age take Adderall to get
But
that
there's a
those
side effect to that.
those 1-2 hours of productivity that they just like would take them 5 or 6 hours, so they can just do it as efficiently as possible. And a lot of people say no to that. So, and like I don't think it changes your level, your state of happiness or anything. So, I guess I
Yeah.
struggle with that question. Yeah.
I'll say this. We don't know much about the brain. I think we know less than like a fifth about the brain. If Neuralink helps us understand the brain more, then that's a great thing. So I hope it does that. And let's start from there and then like try to understand consciousness and optimal ability and some of these, buzzwords a little bit more. But again, to answer the first question, I wouldn't say yes now.
Yeah, but here's another way of thinking about that question too, Gavin. If I told you like, oh, let me just give you Ozempic and Adderall, so like you'll lose weight, you'll be fit, you'll work super efficiently, and like if you don't really need to sleep, you don't need to sleep. I'll give you tons of like sleeping pills or whatever, we would call that in today's time, if any of us was acting in that way, we'd say like, dude, you have a problem. So yeah, I don't, having it with a
It
Neuralink
would
would
definitely
make it
cause a lot
better.
of problems. Lack of sleep, not eating, being up. Yeah, you definitely
That,
would have some problems. Go get some
that's the whole
sunlight, you
that's the whole thing
NPC.
though. Like there are side effects to those drugs. They're drugs. And if it this is a theory, like a theoretical question, but if there were no side effects at all and you just got the benefits, then it's a different question is what I'm the theory I'm proposing.
And that's more of a philosophical question, but for me, there's two almost layers to it. The foundational one is the spiritual element to it, but the other one is, Devin, and we're talking about all these different cheat codes. I think that our society today is so focused in the direction of medication, where it's like, oh, I'm unhappy with my life. Here's a SSRI. Oh, I'm fat. Here's a pill.
Ozempic.
Oh, I can't, my kid is too crazy. Oh, here's a pill for that. No, you have to do the hard work in learning how to deal with these things over the long term. And I think that that's the answer to your question, Gavin, of, oh, don't you want to reach your zenith? Yes, I'm interested in improving myself every day of my life. We all are as ambitious young men. I'm sure most of our audience is as well. But I'm interested in doing that through the ways that are going to make that a natural and sustainable thing instead of just popping a pill that's a short-term solution to a long-term problem.
Right. This is why we listen to Marcus Aurelius meditations. This is why we listen to Seneca, the Stoics. The old questions have old answers, right? So, at least on the philosophical part of it.
I definitely agree on that point of just like doing difficult things is what brings happiness.
Mm.
And I think that you have to have that foundation no matter what. Like that won't be involved in the hypothetical situation. Like you'll still need to be that person in order to get those results. So it's a
But
nuanced
okay,
question,
so
but
Gavin, a little bit of a different, but you're somebody who's interested in getting physically stronger. Would you take steroids? Would you take steroids if there was no negative downsides?
yeah. No negative downsides that I get absolutely jacked. Would you?
There's our intro clip right there, by the way.
And
No, I think that there's a certain, and this is really getting philosophical, but I think that the joy is in the struggle of improvement. It's like if you could push a button and you automatically have all of your dreams come true, would you push it? I think that that's a really risky thing. And I mean, in society, we see this time and time again. Look at lottery winners and how many of them end up broke, depressed, or suicidal at the end of what they thought was pushing a button and getting everything that they ever wanted. I think that as humans, we're wired to go after the drive and to need to earn the gains that we make.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's definitely a lot of duality for sure.
I won't get too philosophical, but I do think we're living in an age, and I think Kierkegaard talked about this, was we're getting to an age, and he called this like 100, 200 years ago, where people are going to want to find hard things to do and not just easy things. I think life is as easy as it's ever been. Yeah, I mean, we want harder things now. People are searching for it, so yeah.
Yeah, I don't want an easy life by any means. I want an optimal life, and that is where I'm coming from. But there's a lot of people that I completely agree. Like they want that short fix, they want that just easy action they can do every day, and that makes them have the 6-second abs or the quick money, get rich quick scheme. But I do still reside in the camp of like, oh, do a cold plunge or do a marathon. I mean, me and you did a marathon. I'm just saying the fact is that if I had the opportunity to become an optimal human being, I think I would be very curious to see what that would look like.
And that's an honest answer, and that's why something like this Neuralink is going to have so much appeal, because I think that there's a lot of people that if they're going to look around and see their buddies, you're like, oh my God, Johnny was kind of an idiot, but he got this implant and now he's doing great. You know, that's going to be a great sales pitch. And I think it's going to take incredibly strong will for people to say, hey, Johnny might be doing great, but it's not for me.
Okay, well, we'll see what the listeners think, but we have a couple topics that we can bring over to the next pod. But everyone, we had a great conversation. Happy Easter, and we will see you next week.
Happy Easter, everybody.
Peace, sir.